Okay. Well, good evening. Welcome to the November work session / board meeting. We've kind of crammed the two together. I'm sorry, it's on account of me. It is when it comes to the end of the year, things get really busy and you have to start trying to plan your trips and things, and it's just things start crossing over. So we're really appreciative of everybody being accommodation to that, and then we'll be able to get a lot done tonight, I think, and have a good meeting. Dr. Howard, turn it over to you.
Very good. Well, just so that you're aware, we're kind of thin this evening. This is also Georgia Association of School Business Officers meeting, so Anna and Aaron are at the GASBO meeting, and then Mr. Johnson and Mr. Nicholson will be joining us a little late. They went to Advanced Ed, as we know as SACS, training today, and we'll be going back tomorrow, so they're coming back from Atlanta, and you just never know with Atlanta traffic. So
you don't.
They're en route. Hopefully
we'll
be here safely, so we'll have some folks trickle in, but appreciate everyone being here. I've just got some general updates and information, the ones that are listed here. A reminder that our GSBA conference is the December 1st and 2nd. That's the Friday and Saturday conference, but of course we go for the Thursday whole board training, and Amanda, as she always does a great job of taking care of us, has given you some information in your packet to take, and if you need anything in addition to that, let us know. And then just a reminder that our December BOE meeting will be at East Jackson Middle School, and the work session is the Thursday prior to, on the 7th. And then we have full board training on January the 8th. That's just a reminder as well. And the Thursday before, which is our January 5th work session, just a reminder that that is our Parent Advisory Council. So I'll be sending an email reminder to them and reminding them of that meeting and any items that they would like for us to address. At that meeting, we will have final determination on whether or not we have received the College and Career Academy grant, and we'll be able to give them some more updated information about our future facilities plan. So then you see there our board meeting is that evening. That's going to be a long day, so Dr. Morris has graciously offered to feed us that evening when we get back with UGA. So we'll have a dinner before the board meeting on January the 8th, and thought I saw her come in, but I'm not seeing her. She hidden. There she is. So there we go. While it's not listed here, I just want to make you aware of a couple of things. One, I want to say thank you to Todd Schultz and the CTAE teachers. Last Thursday, we had our 5-year annual compliance review. Don't have the official report back yet, but they were very complimentary, and we should be very proud of our program. So thank you for the work that you did in getting prepared for that, and I was certainly proud to be a part of this school system and the work that's happening with our CTAE students. And then, speaking of compliance, Dr. Morris, if you'll lift her up on Monday, she has her compliance review on Monday, and so she's been working diligently to prepare for that. So it's that time of year. So thank y'all for what you're doing to prepare for those already occurred and upcoming fun days.
I look relieved she does.
Yeah, you're relieved. Hers is yet. That's right. So that's a lot of preparation, and we are grateful for that work. The other item that we will not be voting on tonight, but I wanted to go ahead and share with you, I just referenced our Parent Advisory Council, and they have given us a lot of feedback, and for those who are tuning in tonight, again, thank them for their investment in giving us their feedback from our communities. One of the things that they asked for was just to do the calendar early and to consider a 2-year calendar. And so what I have for you is a calendar option 1 and calendar option 2, and they are quite different. Now we have both of these built out for 2 years. We've given you 1 year to look at. What I would propose is that we put this out for feedback on our website, leave it up for 25 to 30 days so that we can get some feedback on these. And approve 1 year at a time, but go ahead and post a 2-year calendar so that people can begin to make plans. And to be honest with you, I'd like to share with you why I think it might be beneficial for us not to approve a 2-year plan that far in advance. We can have it out there and people can make plans, but in terms of the world ever changing, it gives us an opportunity, if we have a need to revise, then we can revise it. People will see reference to a tentative schedule. The other piece that the reason I think this is important, last week we had Project Culture Shift, which is under leadership and performance, and I will reference that very quickly since Mr. Nicholson is not here yet. The Project Culture Shift was an amazing experience for about 30 of our teachers and leaders, and this is an effort to really help people think what they call 10X thinking, really think what it needs to be in the future. We are the only district in the state of Georgia that Google has partnered with to provide this training. This is design thinking that came out of Stanford University, and it is very research-based, and it is the leading research that's used in large corporations to really help people think innovatively. And so the teachers and the leaders that participated in that training gave us amazing feedback, and therefore we feel like it's something we should continue and sustain. One of the things that came out of that conversation and the work that happened, there's 4 pillars of innovation that were recognized by Google that they use, and one of those is collaboration, one is risk-taking, curiosity, and agency, meaning people have the authority to make decisions and being an agent of change. I spent a lot of time talking about that. The collaboration team came back, and their #1 concern on behalf of our teachers is the lack of time for teachers to plan and collaboratively have professional development. That children are changing at a much faster rate than adults are, but they don't have time to catch their breath, much less be proactive in their planning. So they made some suggestions for what we would probably see as some radical ideas for the calendar, but it was very passionate from their perspective, and so I don't want us to approve too far out without there being some opportunity for us to revisit what our teachers think they really, really need. So I think these are great options to start with, and I'd like to put these out there for some feedback for the next month, and then in December we can come back to the table and put them for a vote either in December or January. So you'll notice though there's one element I really want to draw to your attention. Our instructional days are long enough that our students have in fact they have in excess of instructional minutes based on what's required by state policy. So we have drafted here a 190-day calendar for teachers, but a 178-day calendar for students. They'll still have more instructional minutes than they need as required, but we built in 2 additional professional learning days for teachers in both calendars. I'd like the board to really think about that. If that's something that you feel we are ready to support, that great. If not, we can revisit, which is why I'd like it to lay on the table for a while and us think about it. Calendar option 1 is similar to the calendar that we have this year. However, it does have more built-in professional learning days, and you'll see there that school would start on a Friday, just like it has this past year, and you would have Thanksgiving and our winter holidays. The October break intentionally falls around our FFA livestock shows, the things that we have a lot of children who miss school for that, so we intentionally put those days when that is the break around that. And February, that's correct. So we tried to be strategic with that. So the calendar option 1 is more like our existing calendar. Calendar option 2 starts earlier, but you'll notice that you have basically the equivalent of a week off every 9 weeks. So, and some built in. So you have a October break, and then you have November. Every month you have a relatively good break. There seems to be, we shared this with the Teacher Advisory Council, there seems to be probably 60 to 70% of our teachers who really like calendar option 2. Their feedback is, granted, folks don't really like starting in July, but the breaks come at a very good time, and so those are the 2 calendar options we have. And if you'll look over those, and if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, we are not in a rush. We'd like to do this December or January. So those are for your review, and we'll put them up for our stakeholders to review. Any questions about the actual options?
At this point.
Okay. All right, very good. Just before I turn it over to leadership and performance, I want to draw your attention to some things that are not on the agenda. I want to thank Karen Bridgman. She has provided for us some digital communications data. We're trying to track the communication data that we're able to measure. So in the back, behind everything else, is just an add-on. You have monthly update on digital communications. And another piece that we're going to begin providing for you on a monthly basis, we have done a really good job of highlighting our schools when we visit the school. But there are a lot of things going on at our schools on an ongoing basis. So we've asked our principals to designate someone in their building that on a monthly basis you get a 1-page overview of some of the highlights at each school. So that if there's something, I realize we do a lot on Twitter, We do a lot on Facebook. We put it on our web pages and so forth, but I thought this would be helpful for you as a board member to just get a snapshot of what their highlights for the month are. And if you really take some time to look at those, you'll have a lot to be proud of and lots to celebrate. So that is just there as a reference for you, and we'll continue to do that as a pattern so that you are able to stay in the loop of the achievements of our schools. So that's all I have for general information, and how about that for timing, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Nicholson? So welcome. Never knew you weren't here. So how about taking us into the next updates with leadership and performance?
Absolutely. Nation next year, which every school system in the nation has to do, and it's a 5-year cycle. So Mr. Johnson and I made it through the Atlanta traffic.
Glad you don't do that every day, aren't you?
I'm incredibly grateful that you can rest assured if the DOE ever offers me a job, it's likely not going to be.
Better come with a helicopter.
No, exactly. Some good folks there, but yeah, the commute is not favorable. A few things underneath leadership and performance. One of those is just to give you an update on the competitive grant process. That's the approach that we took with the Chromebooks, and it closed at the end of October. We had 50+ applicants, which is quite fantastic. We anticipate being able to fill about 35 classrooms, and what we're doing is if a classroom has 37 kids, then the way they wrote the grant, you can't go to one-to-one if everybody doesn't have a device. And so based on right now the initial rankings of those applications, it looks probably 35 or so classrooms, but the process involves principals providing feedback. Each of the teachers completed an application. They answered some questions about how they would use one-to-one devices. Principals gave some feedback in regard to where the teacher is in terms of their innovation and their use and practices that they already have in their classroom. And then there is a lesson plan. And all of this is then scored by a team of folks, and you don't know who the applicant was, you don't know what the school, I mean, about the best you know is the grade band, because you do need to know that for the lesson plan, because you want to see a difference in a lesson plan for kindergarten versus AP Calculus. But pretty excited. We should be announcing those in the next several weeks, who will be awarded those one-to-one grants. The Chromebooks are here. We received them, so again, thank you. That was from, I believe that's when you approved money from SWAST last year. So it's pretty exciting to see big shipments like that come in. And that was 900 Chromebooks. We purchased 100 at the beginning of the year to make the transition from since we had new teachers, but we didn't have new devices yet, so we had 100 Chromebooks, and we gave some of those Chromebooks temporary use to our new teachers. I would like to publicly thank, though it's not on here, but it's related, our technology department. They have since rolled out the new teacher devices, one-to-one devices, at both the middle schools and both the high schools, and so that, again, a public thank you, because those devices are in terms of technology, they're very old. Most of the batteries don't last. Everywhere you see, every professional learning space we have to have extension cords, and it just becomes a tripping hazard, and it's just, you can't go anywhere with your device. You can't unplug it and go across to another table without it crashing. So that's very appreciated, and we'll do a rollout, hopefully with your blessing, with elementary next year. But in the interim, we have just begun the process, or technology has begun the process of finding the best of what was in middle and high school, replacing that, and having a surplus of the older devices at elementary schools, so that if a motherboard dies or a battery dies, they can quickly replace it, and we know the rest of it is just recycled, right, so that we can overcome some of the issues that we've had in buys this year. So, questions, comments, concerns, thoughts about the competitive grant or technology devices? Well, I understand, Dr. Howard, you maybe mentioned a little bit about Project Culture Shift.
I did.
Very excited about that 10X thinking. We're the only school district in the state that's doing this, and the Department of Education has gotten to experience the Project Culture Shift process, and so we're on the front end of innovation. Did you mention that we are going to be doing this with our principals?
I did not.
So our next step is we have to continue the work. We had such great feedback from the 30 folks that participated. This was the best professional learning I've ever been in. I feel invigorated. I feel like my values and my opinions and my thoughts were listened to. I mean, it was just really positive, but you don't want people to get excited about something and then just let it fizzle out. So we're meeting on Monday with the 2 facilitators and determining next steps with that group, but we've already asked them, not every one of our principals was able to participate in this because we had to cap it on the size, and so they've agreed to come out in December and provide that same training for our principals and hopefully our assistant principals as well, so that when you've got these teachers really excited about something, you know what it is that they're excited about. Design thinking and this 10X thinking is the type of thinking that made corporations like Google to be successful. And actually they say it's not thinking outside of the box. It's if you've got the constraints of the box, what are you doing inside the box differently? Because everybody else is just following what they've always done, and they're not necessarily yielding the results that they would like to get. And that certainly will lead up to our conversation in a few minutes about our system improvement plans, is that we don't want to just keep redoing the same things and getting the same results. We want to make sure that what we're doing is yielding the results that we all know that our schools and our teachers and our leaders are capable of. So that's more to come from there, and we'd like to hopefully highlight that in kickoff mid-year, January. We'd like to spend some more time talking to the whole district in regard to Project Culture Shift. We also have coming up in November, 29th and 30th, I believe, are the dates, and that is the Schlechte Center work, and that's where it says using system capacity standards. So I use the analogy that if Google is the Project Culture Shift is the spark and it's the tinder to get the fire going, then that's wonderful, but you have to have some capacity. You have to be able to sustain it, and so the Schlechte Center work is really that infinite supply of fuel, of lumber to that fire, teaching us how do we take this concept of disruptive forces, innovation, change, not just for change's sake, but change that we know is needed, but we've not really thought in a way that will allow us to achieve the goals that we've already, that the board and the school system has already identified. So that Schlechte Center work will be school teams with a principal and 4 teacher leaders, and then we have a district level team. And that's also a very unique opportunity because there are not many, there are certainly more than one, but there are not many school systems that are receiving that professional learning. It's worth noting to anyone that's listening that all of this is being given to us. I mean, the
Page
Google
Foundation has
Page
supported us.
donating, Project Culture Shift, none of this is costing us anything. It's folks outside of Jackson County are really excited about the work that we're doing, and so we're developing quite the name of, it started with our personalized learning and approaches that we're taking, and so there's certainly a positive momentum and people want to be a part of something successful. So that's quite exciting, and I'm sure that as we go further into the Schlechte Center work, we'll have more to share, but part of that is a lead into some data that we want to share with you in a few minutes. And CCRPI, that's the public measure. The problem with it is it changes every year. It changes for everybody every year, so it's not unique to Jackson County, but it changes every single year. We have yet to have one year to the next where the weights, the criteria, everything was the same. So all of this work that we're doing is we have tons of feedback, whether it's survey data, informal stakeholder meetings. We know we're gathering information about what our students, our teachers, our community members value. And so one of our goals in teaching and learning is to really build a set of values and expectations that we as a community believe are true. I mean, what is it that we value? Because this mark keeps changing on us, and we will play along because we need to, and we will adhere because we want to be in good standing with the DOE, and it's not an anti-DOE thing. It's just we can't keep adjusting every year and saying, oh, we're here. Our goal is to take the strategic plan, and as we've already done, start to identify through the process, the quality service standards, a comprehensive look at what do we as a community value and how do we measure that. And all of the state's requirements fall underneath that, as well as federal programs would fall underneath that. But we want to be able to say, this is what we believe in Jackson County, and this is how we're measuring it. And all along the way, we're playing nicely, and we're in compliance. But the state accountability, the CCRPI, you do have a two pages, and I'm going to ask Mr. Johnson in just a minute here to walk you through. But there are some celebrations for sure. We're not going to jump too much into the data just yet, but some celebrations on that front, the sheet that looks like this that says Jackson County Schools, CCRPI, and Student Growth Celebrations. East Jackson County High School had the highest overall CCRPI, and it was remarkably high, 92.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic. I mean, that is absolutely remarkable. And it's remarkable for any school, but for a high school, that's quite exceptional. And so there's a lot of work that went into that. We saw that with the graduation rate. It's not that East High is the only high school doing wonderful things, but as this measure goes, East High certainly deserves some public recognition. We also had a couple of schools here that had a significant overall increase from 2016 to 2017, and that is East Jackson High School, Jackson County Comprehensive High School, and East Jackson Elementary School. Those are some of our real high flyers. What we tried to do is we looked through, Mr. Johnson and I went through and looked at every different way that you can look at CCRPI, because you can look at data in a number of ways. So we looked at cut scores, we looked at gains, but what's good, what's really good about that is every one of our schools, we didn't do this intentionally, but we said, if we look through multiple angles, does it show that each one of our schools is truly being successful in one area or another? And when you look through, you'll see every one of our schools does have something about them, as measured by CCRPI, that they're doing exceptionally well. When we look at the data, there full transparency, there are some areas where we definitely need some growth, but that's why we asked earlier in the year, this is data that we knew from last year. That's why at the beginning of the year, we had each of the leadership teams come present to the board. They are completely aware of where they stand, and that's why they shared their school improvement plans, because what's more important now than looking back at the data is what are we doing to progress monitor that data. We do have Katie Warwick, who is phenomenal, and she is out there making a difference, just being laser focused on math. I believe that we're going to be recommending somebody a little bit later this evening for literacy, and she's just going to be equally as amazing. And it's when you have people that are designated to that very specific focus, for Mr. Johnson to be able to dig down into data, it makes us less generalist and it makes us our work more specific. So I do feel confident that in the areas where Mr. Johnson shows you where we've got some areas for improvement, we already have a plan for it. That's the good news. That this wasn't something that caught us by surprise. But I've spoken long enough. Mr. Johnson, do you want to share a little bit about the student growth percentiles and some of the
I'll just ask Mr. Johnson, share if you don't mind, and keep it as succinct as possible. We've got several things still to do.
She knows I can get passionate.
Well, you should be passionate. I appreciate it.
One of the things that I, as a principal in both high school and elementary school, when we've looked in the past, and I think about where AYP's come since my tenure in education over 20 years, at one time it was just literally a pass and fail, and completely and only based on the achievement. Did your kids pass or fail the state assessment? And we've seen a shift now, and there's a proposed change for the whole new calculation that we're waiting to hear. And for our teachers in our schools, it's unfortunate right now, because literally for this year, it's like running a marathon, and they finished the first quarter of the marathon, and they still don't even know what our measure is going to be for this school year. So literally the old analogy of building the airplane and flying it at the same time. But as far as looking at where our strengths are and where our areas of improvement are, we have some schools that had some pretty phenomenal growth, which is going to be one of the big components. It's currently within our current calculation. It's part of the progress. But for example, East Jackson High School, we were able to find out in the last couple of days, and I had the opportunity to call Mr. Dixon and let him know. We shared with you back in the summer about how well the geometry students did in terms of just their achievement. But we found out that they had the highest student growth percentile median for the entire state. So out of 414 schools, they had the highest growth. SGP,
pretty amazing.
And literally, places them at number one. In terms of fifth grade math, and just some quick things there, West Jackson Elementary School, their math teachers in fifth grade in the top 4%. There were 47 out of 1,247 schools. Gum Springs Elementary, who was nice enough to host us this evening, their fourth grade in ELA and mathematics were both. They had 5% in the top 5%, and then also for ELA, and then for 9% for math. And then East Elementary School with their team came in at the top 10% with their fifth grade math. So as we shared back this summer, one of the things that we've been doing is really looking externally for other schools that are performing and very similar to us to see what are they doing, but then also looking internally at those places where we've got these strong growth performances and looking and see what can we replicate. Our principals have been very transparent, and they own it, and they talk with me weekly about, let's look at this and what are we doing. We've been able to implement the map, which gives us a better predictor now of how our students are doing, and our teachers being able to monitor that. And like I said, a lot of it right now is just adjusting to some of these new changes. As Mr. Nicholson said, I look forward to working with our community and stakeholders as we develop our own accountability measure, because yes, while we do have to play by the state's rules as far as what they're going to measure, we need to be able to create that system for us, which also identifies what we value as a community. So, but if you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. But like I said, we had some areas where we saw a lot of success, and then we've got some areas where we've had some performance conversations with individuals regarding, and it's like we said, this isn't new data. This is data from last year, and those principals are well aware of that, and their leadership teams and their teachers. But just continue to focus on it throughout the year.
And the only thing I would add is on that spreadsheet, we know what our community feels about our schools because our climate scores are stellar. They're either, we have half of them are the highest they can be, and those that were lower have increased, and that comes from student survey, parent survey. So we know that what we're doing, the day-to-day operations, the actual experiences meet the expectations of our community. So we do feel good about the direction we're going, and then we'll use the rest of the data to determine areas that we need to emphasize as we continue to move forward.
Very good. Thank y'all very much. And they have poured over this data, and so have our schools and our school leaders. And really, there's no lack of focus in terms of what we really know we're working towards. I think what Mr. Nicholson and Mr. Johnson shared with you is critically important in terms of this is not new. We knew this. That is exactly why. Thank you for your support, that we have the Dr. Warwick's and the recommendation we're going to have for literacy specialists and put some things back in place. And I do, Mr. Nicholson's here, I want to send a shout out to East Jackson High School. There's been a conscious, deliberate focus on making sure we increase achievement there, and it's yielding great results. So thank you for all that you're doing there. All right, personnel recommendations. I'll give that pleasure to you, Dr. Blankenship. You got some.
And it's my pleasure. We have a fairly short personnel recommendation list this month. And as Mr. Nicholson said, we are able to bring a recommendation for a literacy specialist to you this month. Ms. Amy Godfrey is on this list, and she comes with a wealth of experience, and I think will be able to make an immediate impact from all that Mr. Nicholson has shared. So
she's a parent here at Gum Springs.
Oh,
and she's a parent here at Gum Springs.
so she has some investment for sure. Yeah.
And with these recommendations, we have filled all but one special ed adaptive position, and that's a position that we have at East High, but there's a very highly qualified long-term sub in that position, and so they are doing stellar work there, and we will continue to search for a stellar person to fill that position, but we are only going to look for the best. So we feel very confident with the situation that we have right there now is well in hand. So we will continue to look there. We do have a few classified positions, a couple of paraprofessional positions, and then our ever-continuing search for the holy grail of bus drivers. We are continuing to increase our efforts to recruit bus drivers, and I think you'll hear a little bit more about some strategies, new strategies that we're going to try to do that a little bit later. So that's for your consideration. Any questions?
Are most of these replacements, other than the ones that you mentioned, that were added?
Yes, ma'am.
Like Ms. Godfrey?
That's the only new position is Ms. Godfrey.
Yes. The next thing on your list is a personnel timeline. It's almost time to begin the cycle again. And so just for your information, we will, our plan is to try to have personnel allocations to principals before we leave for winter break. That's our goal. And then we'll begin with our process of getting letters of intent and transfer requests distributed to teachers when we return from the holidays. And then in February, our plan is to make our leadership recommendations to the board, and then in March, our other certified personnel recommendations. And then the final piece of information that you have under Human Resources is an enrollment overview. And this is something that we're going to provide to you each month with updated numbers so that we can all monitor the enrollment numbers a little more closely at our schools across our district. We know that we are growing, and it's going to be really important for us to keep a keen eye on that now so that we can plan for our personnel needs going forward. So you can see that our district enrollment, and these are all, the numbers are taken on the last day of the month, each month. And so as of October 31st, we had 7,710 students, and that is up from, I asked Ms. Wilson to pull the numbers from last year. So last October 31st, we had 7,531. So we're up a little, about 2.5%, close to 2.5% over last year at this time.
Does this number include pre-K, remind me?
The sheet that you have does not, but in the future, we have added a line. Just today, Ms. Wilson shared with me that she's added a line for pre-K, and I believe we had 284 pre-K enrolled. So, and that number will stay pretty
steady,
steady, due to the cap on the numbers that we have in that program.
And that's how many did you say?
284 for pre-K.
Right. Very good. Thank you, Dr. Blankenship. And we do have a short executive session at the conclusion of the board meeting, which will include some very quick personnel conversations that we'll update you on. So we'll talk about that. Since there is no one here from our finance office, they're all at GASBO, I will take the distinct pleasure of reviewing our financials for you. I'd like to first look at a celebration right on top, and that is our SPLOS report from September of 2017. That's much higher year over year, as well as month over month, pretty significant. So I think we all kind of agree that there were several events happening in our area.
And good weather.
And good weather, and you know, we are increasing the number of retail and food outlets, and so that is a direct, as long as that kind of growth continues, we should celebrate. So you can see there that our SPLOS fund balance continues to grow, even though Mr. Farmer keeps wanting to buy buses and Mr. Nicholson wants to buy computers, and we all want both of those things, so we have to aggravate them a little bit. But even with some of the purchases that we've made,
it's helping offset it.
It's helping to offset. That's exactly right. So that is very, very good news. You've got our general operating fund update there. We had a good tax check already yesterday, didn't we, Miss Amanda? And so tax revenues are already beginning to come in. So we are right at 33% of the year completed, and you can see there we're doing very well. Expenditures are a little higher than obviously than we want, but as you know, some of those are front-end expenses for renewals of beginning of the year types of software programs and so forth. So we're right in line, and if you look at the next page, which is the most telling page for a fund balance perspective, we are, based on the tax money we got yesterday and our November QBE money, we will be perfectly fine. There's not even the least bit of reservation about having to have a TAN, and this is the highest fund balance we've had at this point in the year in the past probably 12 or 15 years. So we are really, really in a very, very good place. So very good news on the financial front, and that we'll hope that that continues and expect that it will. So, okay. Any questions about the financials? Okay. All right. West Jackson Middle School had their kickoff to a production, and I believe Mr. Patton's daughter is Cinderella, so he is not here. He's at that production as he should be. So I'll take the privilege as well of going over the facilities updates. just so that you're aware, we began our timeline for requests for proposals for both the renovations at West Jackson Middle School, which we anticipate for the summer. That project will begin in early spring. There are some things that they can do really probably starting in late February, early March, but that will be a big and important project. And then also for the construction of the new facility off of Skelton Road. So just so that you're aware, this advertisement has been posted on our webpage. And Mr. Patton is meeting with several folks who have inquired, and we will have an official review of those documents, and he has convened a team, and I'll talk with you about that on December the 4th. So we will choose our CM at risk based on the advertisement and the submissions that we have here. So I just want you to be aware of that. The second, any questions on the CM at risk? This is for your review, so if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to call me tomorrow, but it is pretty standard. Just a very quick update, the City of Nicholson had a meeting on Monday evening of this week, and they're going to be having another meeting, and we expect that we'll be able to finalize that transition for Benton Elementary School becoming the possession of the City of Nicholson, and they are very excited about that, and we hope that we expect that we'll have that done by November 15th, but I wanted you to know that that is still slated to go forward, and we are very excited that they're going to be able to benefit from that facility, and we'll see life and activity, and it will honor the impact it's had in that community. All right, we have one last thing that I'd like to spend about 5 minutes talking about, and I think it goes without saying that we recognize that this has probably been the most challenging year that I've ever experienced as it relates to transportation. And Mr. Farmer and I have had many conversations, and Dr. Blankenship's been a part of many of those conversations. There are many variables that have impacted this. We were very transparent last year in our conversations beginning really in January with our Parent Advisory Council when we started entertaining the idea of going to a new transportation model as a part of our rezoning and tiered transportation. So what you have here is basically a plan of attack for what we expect and will be doing over the course of the next few weeks to improve our existing transportation delivery model. He's got 3 very specific goals here. Our goal is a consistent and dependable pickup time. That has been a challenge. For example, this morning, we had 3 drivers out. 3 drivers impacted 14 other routes because they had to accommodate the fact that we had no sub-drivers. All the mechanics were driving, and so when you have that type of a situation, it's not just 3 routes that are impacted, it's those 3 routes plus everybody else that has to contribute to help with that route. So, but you can see there that David has some very specific task that he's moving forward with, and I'm going to go over the goals, and then David, I'll let you entertain any questions or thoughts. The second one is timely communication. We really want to make sure that we have it's our most precious cargo, as David's motto is, but it's also parents' most precious possession, and so we need to make sure that parents are aware of when their children are going to be late and where they are when they are late and how long it's going to be. And we recognize the fact that there have been situations that are extreme in terms of inconvenience, and I genuinely regret that, as does Mr. Farmer, and we're committed to making improvements. And so that is one of our second tasks, is the communication. And then the third, of course, is to provide sustainable and efficient service model. So what we're doing now with the numbers of drivers that we have is not sustainable. We do not have enough drivers to be able to backfill when you have subs. So we're going to have to look at some unfortunate but probably solution-oriented approach so that we build a pool of drivers, because we're going to have drivers out. And it's not like a school where you can ask somebody to watch both classrooms for 15 minutes till we get the sub here. Every minute that a driver is not on the road, it is exponentially impacting the pickup time. So Mr. Farmer, I don't know if you want to speak to any of these specific tasks under each of the goals. You feel free.
I think the biggest thing, the biggest challenge we have, of course, you mentioned it, is the absenteeism, and the fact that we don't have that sub-pool to pull from. We mentioned schools, and yes, they have a sub-list that they can go to, but I think even at school level, they still struggle with that also. Mm-hmm. So it's this is not only a county-wide, it's a statewide, this is a nationwide problem that districts face, and that is is finding bus drivers. It's a tough job. It's a job that you're asking the individual to put 60 kids on a bus, sometimes 40 kids, and turn you back to them and manage it, and then get them home safely. So it's a very unique job, very unique responsibility. But I think the absenteeism, not having that sub pool, has really been a challenge for us this year. And as you see, we have come up with some things that we are moving forward with and doing, and trying to prepare for that, to compensate for those people that do call in sick. A lot of our late buses are due to the fact that we have drivers that call out, and we have to double them, we have to trip them. Now, it sounds like that would be easy to do. You just put another bus over there and they pick up these kids. But when you have buses that are nearing capacity, you have to spread out. It's the domino effect, and you have to spread them out. So these things are the challenges that we are facing. And these are some of the things that we've sat down and talked about, and have given them goals, and in the process of making sure that we are improving our transportation, because we do haul the world's most precious commodity. I want every student, at the end of the day, naturally, I want them home safe and sane. But we would like to have that in a time, in a timely manner. And that's the challenge we face.
Have we had more absenteeism with our bus drivers this year than we've had in the past?
If you look at it, Ms. Wheeler, I think that this year, from what I've seen, we've had more sickness. We've had a lot more situations that death being one of them, that families have faced. I don't know why that's the case, but I think that's a big part of it.
3 consistently out on FMLA, approved FMLA.
And when you have that coupled with increased ridership, which brings those buses closer to capacity, it does impact more of the routes than it might normally impact.
And we understand that, and under ideal conditions, if you had a sub pool, then this wouldn't be an issue.
And when we have every single driver there, it works fine.
Absolutely.
That's
I wouldn't
exception.
need to have conversation about what we need to do to fix like buses, but unfortunately, the fact is we don't. And so that's why we're trying to move forward with trying to build that sub pool and fill that challenge.
And we're going to talk with you over the course of the next few months about asking or inviting any of our teachers who are interested in paying them a driver salary if they'll drive a route, because many of them may do that, and you would build a pool right there of afternoon sub drivers. So yeah, we're going to explore every option, and Mr. Farmer and Dr. Blankenship and myself have reached out to districts all over the state, similar in size, and they are experiencing many of the same challenges.
It's all over the country. I travel in quite a bit of the country, and you see in school districts with the buses with the banners out front need drivers, and they're offering a list of benefits to try to solicit them.
I remember back in the day when I rode a bus, it was your local farmer that needed the insurance, but those individuals are gone away now.
Sure.
And there's a pool of jobs available now that weren't available, say, a year or two ago. But since we're coming out of that recession, we're seeing things booming, jobs that I've lost several drivers that have came to me because times were hard and there weren't any jobs available, and they were skilled workers. But when those jobs came back, then of course I lost them.
Sure.
And I understand why, because it is a full-time job, where ours is a 20-hour-a-week job. And I don't know any individuals that can sustain a family or an income on 20 hours a week.
Which is another strategy we're looking at, is pairing those jobs so that they have a full-time job. Part of their job is driving a bus, and part of their job is doing something else, so that it is sustainable. So we're gonna have to do some 10x thinking and completely do it differently. And so,
and Dr. Howard, I want to say that publicly that our drivers that we have, a lot of them have been here with us a long time, and they are top notch. And these guys are doing double and triple routes, and they are here. They're here when they're sick. They're here making sure that these kids get home safe and sane. And at the end of the day, naturally, that's the most important thing, is getting the children to school safely and home safely.
that's right.
But in that, we also understand the challenges, and we wanna meet them, and we wanna fix them.
Yeah.
And make sure we're doing our part to accommodate that.
So the plan is to combine the middle and high school, some of those routes on the east
Yes,
side.
ma'am.
How soon will that take
That
place?
has already taken place.
Okay, it's already happened.
And some in the morning it will begin to take place, but in the afternoons, it is already taking place. And I give kudos to Mr. Dixon's team and to,
Ms. Barnett's
Ms.
team.
Barnett's team also, in handling the amount of buses that have increased on their campuses. And, the plan that they've come up with and have designed, I give kudos to them because I know, Mr. Patton Davis and Ms. Jody Alexander and Tiffany Barnett and, Mr. Dixon and Sean Weeds and Shannon Palmer, Sam Yakin, all have been exceptional in accommodating that and understanding what we're trying to do. And I feel their frustration because it radiates here. Dr. Howard can tell you, it's been we're working 12, 15, 16 hours a day trying to do all we can to make this plan a progressive plan. And in saying that, it takes time, but that I appreciate the schools being patient and understanding, and West Jackson Middle School also, Mr. Cobb, Mr. Green, Ms. Johnson, they have been all exceptional. Every school has wanted to work with us, and they're trying to be problem solvers and a part of that plan that will help continue to meet the growth that we have.
So since we're picking up the middle and high school together now on the east side, we're not having students late? The class?
The time that we have buses late, as I mentioned before, when they are late, it is due to the fact that we have people that are out and they're having to double for those routes. Right, the morning has not.
Oh, the morning has not started.
Afternoon.
They have to some extent, but not to the extent that the afternoon has. But even in the combination of that, we have to understand if we have 3 and 5 drivers out, like we had at East Jackson area, we had 5 out in that area today, then those students have to be spread out. And so that's when we have those late buses coming in. And
So
it does make it a challenge.
So we have started this with the afternoon, but not with the morning yet?
Not to the extent that we want to with that.
Yeah, how soon do you anticipate that being?
Next week is what we're looking at.
Okay.
David, so how late is some of the kids get home now?
Most everybody except for our VIPs are home by 5:15. That 5:15. VIPs of course are a little later because they're done at the end of the routes.
Well, and they may go across county lines.
And that is correct.
These are children who identify for.
Spread out, and we do have some that are as far as line of that. So in saying that, if everybody's here,
It's 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, great day. I remember the times when I first started, it was 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Sure was.
And Miss Doug, bless her soul, and Sherry Hall, they were the last two.
South Jackson.
5:45, 6 o'clock, they'd call me and say, I'm empty, we're finished. And so we have improved that. The plan that we took on this year, we heard our community's needs and we wanted to accommodate that. And, the exponential growth, as the numbers have stated that we've seen, it's made it a challenge. So these are the things that we're doing to try and help with what we're facing.
You have 83 routes right now, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that many drivers, so you're going 83 drivers with 83 routes. So we got to find a way to reduce the number of routes so that we've got at least a 10% pool for subs, but we simply don't have the people for that right now. All right. Well, that's all we have, and if we can squeeze in a quick executive session, that would be fantastic. All right, very good. Thank you. I think